Hi, class. Today I'm reviewing part 2 of chapter 9, reporting. Now we're going to focus on feature writing as well as localizing stories. Now, for feature writing, features tend to be more evergreen or semi evergreen topics, things that you can either modify for certain times of the year or that will happen probably every year or at least every couple of years. So if there's a particular trend that repeats every 2 or 3 years, like in fashion, or if you have an annual event that you're going to cover, that's generally considered more of a feature. Or you might have a particularly interesting person or place that you want to focus on, or maybe it's based on daily life. So something related to your target audience that you think they will find interesting. In feature writing, as with other writing, of course, you want to identify the main assertion. Why does this matter? Why does this matter to your target audience? What makes this story interesting? Why should they know more about this person if you're focusing on a person? Or maybe it's a topic related to general life, or maybe it's a particular trend you're following. There are lots of different focuses you can use, but the main point is you want to make sure you're answering that the rest of that sentence, this matters because. Now, you do want to look for competing stories, see how some other people wrote it. Almost always, you'll be able to find at least one other person who wrote a very similar story to what it is you're writing, if not the exact same. This happens a lot with home remodels, where every year there's a slight update on different things that different types of furniture or painting trends or different things people recommend. Or maybe there's a new angle this year for a hunting license story because some of the requirements have changed. Or if there's a new player on a particular team and people think that they're going to improve quite a bit because this person is on the basketball team or the football team or whatever. So look for other versions of your idea, see how you can add to the story and improve the narrative, the current narrative of your idea. Now, even though a lot of these concepts are sort of evergreen or things that you might be able to cover for multiple years or maybe at different times of the year, you do want to focus your writing in on a news peg. So explain why this story should be published now. This might mean maybe if you were working on the story over several months that you have to kind of rewrite the introduction, or if there's an anniversary coming up for a particular event, or if there are certain seasonal concepts. So review your work, see how you can explain this, why this is relevant to your audience, and kind of it'll also help you to focus your narrative and figure out why this matters to your audience. Now, profiles are a particular type of feature. You're usually interviewing someone that your target audience would find interesting and figuring out how they became the person they are today. Now, you use two key components when you're writing profiles. Of course, you want to interview the main person, interview other people in their lives, especially if it's someone they mention over and over again during an interview, and also look at how how other people react to them, or maybe how they behave in day-to-day life. Now, feature profiles can also include obituaries. This is usually a bit more sensitive, whenever you talk to surviving family and friends, Or maybe there are some archived interviews with this particular person if they're very famous and your news organization keeps a back catalog of information about them. A lot of different news groups will keep they'll keep a record of information and kind of they'll make a shell story about someone, especially if it's an older individual or someone they know has been chronically ill for several months or years, and they know they'll want to have a special profile obituary about this person. Now, of course, the biggest difference with obituaries is you can't ask the person questions after they pass away, but of course, you can ask their friends and family and review archived footage. In profile writing, you do want to have in-person interviews. Those are very important. And part of the in-person interview, of course, is having a kind of ride along with them. So see if you can follow them, kind of shadow them at work or maybe in their home, and see how they interact with other people on a regular basis. Some people are okay with this. Others prefer to have the couch sit down interview, maybe just in their home. But usually, if you're profiling someone, you'll at least have the opportunity to see them out and about somewhere. And of course, as you're conducting the interview, you want to make sure that you get all of the explanations you need, find the why behind certain behaviors or certain ideas they mention. Maybe there was a specific job that sparked the idea for them to create the company they have now, or an interaction with a certain person made them want to change their life, or see what different where different turning points are for them, or particular specific emotional areas. So if the let's say there's a certain song that makes them cry, ask maybe if it's because it's related to a special moment with a person who's no longer with us, or a maybe it's from a traumatic event, or maybe it's from their quinceañera or their birthday party or something, and it just brings back a lot of happy memories about their childhood or something. So if someone mentions that a particular item or movie or song is very significant to them, you want to make sure you explore why it is and see if it's something that you want to include in the story as kind of a humanizing element. Now, of course, for your sources, you do have your main interview, and you're going to interview the person you're profiling a few times. During the first interview, you want to get to know more about them. This isn't just stuff that you would see on their Wikipedia page or whatever. You want to fill in any gaps left by your research, see if there are any, see if there's maybe a little more information this person can offer about a particular time in their life that seems a little hazy based on what you found, or see, this is where you can build up more of a framework and figure out how you want to write your profile. And then of course you can go in and you want to go at least one more time in person, talk to them, get to know them a little more, and of course interview any people they mention as particularly significant if possible, or also look for more people based on research or other things they mention. And during these secondary interviews, you want to see how they relate to the subject. Are they really, excited and Do they have a lot of things to say about this person? And probably so. So kind of see where your questioning of these other people related to the person you're profiling leads, and add that information, and maybe it'll lead you to some more questions you can ask in your second or third interview with the person you're profiling. And of course, the other part of the in-person interview is observation. You want to look at how the person is dressed, maybe certain mannerisms they have, if they talk with their hands a lot, or maybe they're more reserved whenever they're at work than when they're at home, or if they tend to decorate a lot with a particular color, maybe, or if there are some special objects they keep in their office, like a lot of people keep their first dollar they made or a check or something. And the just look for anything that seems to be either a pattern or maybe something the person points out as particularly significant to them, or even something they don't need to point out, like if there are a lot of family photos on their desk or something along those lines. Maybe they have a little item their kid made for them whenever their kid was little. Things like that can tell you a lot about someone without them actually having to say anything. Also, you want to review the person's actions. How do they carry themselves around different people? How Another thing is maybe how do they shake hands with people, or how do other people react to them? All of their actions, their environment, even the way a person dresses can tell you more about their personality and give you some things to describe as you're writing. Now, localizations happen whenever you're taking a broad topic, usually something that's at a state, national, or international level, and showing how it relates to your target audience. This can be a direct connection or an indirect connection. Direct, of course, means you have people within the community directly involved. Indirect, you're looking at maybe someone who knew a pop star whenever she was younger, or and wants to share how happy they are that they're on The Voice or whatever show it is, or they have a if you're doing a feature on maybe Vietnam veterans or the Vietnam anniversary, you can interview relatives of the veterans who may have passed away already. And a lot of those people will keep different tokens from their relatives, and they'll add some stories maybe that they were told. And this is secondary information, but a lot of times you can use that information and it'll help you build a better story, especially whenever you're localizing a particular national event or holiday or something. Now, a microcosm localization, it happens whenever you take a larger trend and you want to show how it is impacting the community. In this case, I gave the example of the opioid epidemic in the US. It's something that happened on a national level, but we also had a big impact in our state and in Acadiana. So if you were to show a microcosm of this particular story, you would focus maybe on a family who comes forward and someone in the family who suffered from opioid addiction. Maybe you want to show that the restrictions on opioids are helping people by talking to pharmacists and saying, hey, they can say, hey, we're filling fewer prescriptions for this, or they're smaller, or we're noticing we aren't having as many calls by companies to get medication to treat opioid addiction, or different things like that. You can, of course, talk to health specialists or treatment facilities in your area, and that would be a way to localize this story. You could do similar things with hurricanes, or um, if there's maybe a trend in like increasing tuition in state run schools. Well, you can actually go to people at UL, and that would localize it to Lafayette and the UL Lafayette community. And of course, when you're looking at doing a localization, you want to make sure that your topic does have the ability to be localized. Sometimes you'll have stories where the president made an announcement about something, and sure, he made this announcement, and yes, nationally it's something that needed to be covered, but maybe it isn't something that has a strong community involvement, or anything that will necessarily impact people here in Acadiana. Or you want to make sure that the topic, even if it is maybe something you could technically consider a localization, actually has some substance behind it. So, in the example of the end of the world stories, when people talk about zombie plagues, or they have um, like in 2012 when the Mayan calendar was going to end, and everyone was making, Hollywood movies about the end of the world and stuff, that really wasn't something you could consider substantial news, because I mean, we've had so many times in the past where different groups tried to say it's the end of the world, and there wasn't really any newsworthy aspect to that information. However, if you did want to have some kind of survival story, you could always go with, like, during camping or hunting season, maybe how to perform emergency first aid, what you need to bring with you whenever you go on a camping trip to make sure that you're able to survive, especially if you're one of those people who goes backpacking out in a much larger wilderness than a campsite. Maybe you need to prepare a little more. And of course, all of this needs to relate to whether or not your target audience would find this information useful. And if you're getting reactions about a topic, you want to make sure people are at least somewhat informed about what it is and can give you more than, yes, that's great, or no, that's terrible. Make sure that they they at least sort of have an idea about something. That's part of the kind of good and bad thing about doing person on the street interviews. Sometimes you have to go through 10 or 12 people who really don't give you any usable information before you finally get to someone who says, oh yeah, I know all about this topic, and here's my opinion based on these things I read, or how I think it's going to impact the community. And it's more than just, I think it'll be bad, or I think it'll be good. Now, again, your homework, keep reading chapter 9 if you haven't finished it already. Review lectures in attendance. And so make sure that you're logging in online and clicking the attendance button. And you need to finish your chapter 9 quiz and AP quiz 4 by Sunday. And due Sunday, October 31st, you will need to finish part 1 of your reporting writing project. Okay, I will see you guys later. Send me an email if you have any questions or concerns about this information. Thanks.